Okay. On this episode of Cinema from the Spectrum, we're doing a little TIFF recap in which we talk about 4 movies that we saw at the festival, but we're going to be trust me, we're going to be talking about a whole lot more. Okay. Well, our 4 movies today are what? Mikey Madison plays the stripper Anora in Sean Baker's Palme d'Or winning comedy. Guy Maddin shows us Kate Blanchett as the German Chancellor and Charles Dance as the President of the United States in Rumors. Paul Schrader brings us Leonard Fife through the eyes of Richard Gere and Jacob Elordi in Oh Canada. And Ike Flanagan adapts Stephen King's The Life of Chuck, starring none other than Tom Hiddleston as Chuck Krantz. Welcome to this week's episode of Cinema from the Spectrum. I'm your host, Jaime Reanal.
I'm John Kirkwood.
So I think it's only fitting that for the very first movie we're going to cover today, it's actually also the TIFF People's Choice Award winner.
Which one was this?
It was The Life of Chuck.
Oh, Steven, one quick question for you. So, what? Okay, for us. Okay, so Mike Flanagan's already adapted a few of your works in the past. But what is it about him that especially attracts you to his films?
He's a storyteller as well as a filmmaker.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Steven.
It feels like a story that's about trying to hold on to what is good in a world that feels like it's falling apart. And that takes great courage and great wisdom. It takes a real talent for living. The film's called The Life of Chuck. And yes, it's about Chuck's life, but it's about all of our lives.
Life of Chuck, right. Mm-hmm. I'm excited to talk about this one.
I was at the premiere for this one, which remember that I was not even expecting to get on the red carpet for this one, but that's a whole other story entirely. But yet I did, and I got a very brief chat with Stephen King, as you can see over there.
Yeah, he wasn't supposed to be on the red carpet. Yeah. He wasn't even supposed to be in Canada.
He wasn't even on the guest list, too. But Life of Chuck, it's based on the short story of the same name from Stephen King's own anthology called If It Bleeds, and it's telling the story of Chuck Krantz, but it's told backwards, so to speak.
Yes, and that's important for the film viewing experience and probably the reading experience as well.
Yeah, because when I remember reading this short story, thinking to myself, how exactly couldn't this one be presented on the screen? Because 1, it's not one of Stephen King's horror stories. 2, it is also just a very peculiar story all around.
Yeah, its presentation is a big part of its appeal.
So the thing is, like, the way the movie starts is that it starts off by telling us what happens with, because that's why the film starts with Act 3, but then it goes backwards into how.
I feel like that's a big spoiler.
But yeah, I don't want to tell. I'm not gonna tell.
Well, maybe let's walk that back.
It tells. Okay, so the movie starts with. This movie starts with because it starts with Act 3, but we also ask ourselves, what is it about Chuck that makes him so special?
Well, the him though, that's a spoiler.
Oh, the him. And I mean, I don't think so. It's the start of the movie, anyway. So yeah.
But no, that it's. Like it does. We don't see that till the third act.
Okay, true. Yeah.
I'm saying if people want to go see the movie or read the book, Chuck, we're saying he's the back. I got the front.
Okay, yeah. We'll put that in the blooper reel then.
He's just spoiling the whole thing. Okay, whatever.
So yeah, the movie starts at a very certain phase in the life of Chuck Krantz, because again, this is a movie that tells the story backwards, and. Well, the thing is, when we're not even really introduced to Chuck in the very first act either.
Okay, so the way the movie starts, there's no context.
Yeah,
it's just chaos. Like the world is seemingly ending.
Yeah.
So we see like the internet's going out. I love the comedy where people are complaining. It's a parent-teacher conference.
It's a parent-teacher conference.
And the parents aren't talking about their kids' grades. They're complaining about the world ending. And they're saying the internet's down. I can't watch Pornhub, dude.
They're complaining about the internet. And it's like you're saying, oh, you keep hard copies of all our assignments? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like technology's being scaled back because the grid's going down. Mm-hmm. There's like huge sinkholes. So there's this woman that walks away from her work and she's saying like my bank just went into a sinkhole. I guess I don't have to go to work tomorrow. You're just seeing this end of the world scenario, and it's slow and it creeps in. And there's this great actor. He plays Shaggy.
You see a ghost? What do? You run!
In
Matthew Lillard.
Yeah, he's great, and he's great in this movie. I love. He's got this touch to his comedy.
I didn't even know he was going to be in there up until the screening actually started.
Yeah, but he's great. He's got this touch to his comedy where there's a little bit of sadness in it, especially in this. I like it a lot. And the third act, but one that we see first is it brings up so many questions of this world that is seemingly in decline.
Yeah.
And we dive into these characters' lives, especially the life of this teacher and how he's navigating this decline in society, like having such an uncertain future, or at least feeling certain that there is none.
Yeah, and this teacher, is played by none other than Chiwetel Ejiofor, which, he's like one of my favorite actors in recent memory. I love that what he chooses to do with in his character Marty, he was at once married to Karen Gillan's Felicia Gordon. And the thing is, like, because the world is about to end, he's like, you know what? I just want to reconnect with my ex-wife and make amends for everything that I've done, everything that I've done wrong with her.
In a seemingly non sequitur, there's this great element that's included in this decline in society scenario, which is Chuck. There's billboards everywhere. 39 great years.
Thanks, Chuck.
Thanks, Chuck. And all these billboards and these signs, and also these. I don't know if characters are hallucinating, but they start seeing Chuck in other places as well, and everyone's wondering who the frick is Chuck. Like, the world's ending, it seems, and everyone's asking themselves, who's Chuck?
The world's end. Like, we see we see scenarios from all across the globe. Like, we see that California is basically split from the United States. We see riots, news footage of riots in China, and even flooding in France. But it's like, even then, it's like when we see the Chuck billboards everywhere, it's like, do they also see Chuck?
Yeah, I wonder if there's 39 great years, but it's like in Cantonese.
Cantonese, Mandarin, and even in French, in Spanish, German,
Big jokes.
Yeah.
So there's great punchlines and also great tragedy in the beginning, which is such a careful balance that is, I think they walk it pretty well.
Yeah. But then it's like, Act 2 is when we finally get to see who this Chuck guy really is.
And this is the shortest act, and this is their first time seeing Chuck in motion.
Yeah. Chuck, he's just, an accountant. He's dressed like an accountant at the very least.
Yeah.
And he's played by Tom Hiddleston. He just spontaneously decides to dance in front of a crowd, and that's where we really get to see this. You know what? This accountant might actually have something a whole lot more to him than just what we see.
Yeah, and there's this dry narration that comes in, but not, when I say dry, I mean in terms of humor. It reminds me a lot of Stanley Parable.
Yeah.
In terms of some of the jokes and references being made.
Yeah.
So it's quite likable. It's quite likable.
Did you recognize the voice of the narrator?
That is the dude from Parks and Rec.
Yeah, that's Nick Offerman.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. I know visually everyone associates with him with like manly man kind of stuff from his character, but I don't know. I always find it quite put on. So I'd say the script for this was quite strong. So I like what he said.
Yeah.
The delivery is fine. Yeah. Like I mostly like the dryness of the humor.
And the thing is with Mike Flanagan, as if you've seen stuff like Oculus or The Haunting of Hill House and Midnight Mass, you know the guy loves his monologues.
Yes. So yeah, the narration is good. I'm surprised I liked it.
Yeah.
Is what I'll say.
It's like if it were done by somebody. If it were done by someone else, I could find that it would be very distracting, but it also is the perfect way to introduce the viewers, and to what readers of Stephen King would associate with his prose. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. That's what
So I probably need to start reading Stephen King.
Yes.
Is the answer.
The thing is, I should mention this. Like, before coming into the premiere, I've also read the short story for myself. It's not one of Stephen King's horror stories. It is a very contemplative, measured story about the sort of lives that we all live. Mm-hmm. Because this is a movie all about an ordinary guy named Chuck, and he had a very extraordinary presence at that, especially when he just starts dancing so spontaneously. And can we just talk about how great his dancing is?
It's a great scene that we don't see in other places of the film. There's other dancing we see, but this is the one highlight of dancing, and it's a great scene. But also, Act 2 is the shortest in the entire.
It's
film.
the shortest. It's the shortest act to the point where it's like, it's. I kind of wish we spent a little bit more time with Tom Hiddleston's Chuck, because when we go to Act 1, I'm not going to spoil too much.
Yeah, I want to talk about Act 1, but we're going to keep it vague.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Want to know a little something? Okay, Mark Hamill is the guy who plays Chuck's grandfather, but do you want to take any guesses? Okay, Mia Sara is the woman who plays Chuck's grandmother. You want to take a guess as to where else you would have seen her?
I got no idea.
Bueller.
Who's she in that?
Ferris's girlfriend.
Oh, how time flies.
Yeah, this is like her first movie in a really long time too.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Well, welcome back.
Yeah, and it's also the one act where it's like you see Mike Flanagan's trying to make the most out of the horror icons that he's cultivated over the years.
Yeah.
Like there's a very fun cameo from Heather Langenkamp, who we all remember from A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah. Yeah. With this first act, or the last one we see in the movie, we go even further back into Chuck's life, earlier than the dancing we saw before, and we kind of get a explanation for a lot of what we see throughout the film. Certain themes are explored, certain ideas are explored. My favorite idea is that, once again, like we had to re-record actually, so we already talked about rumors a little bit. We're gonna have to talk about it again.
Yeah.
But something I mentioned was that in rumors we'll talk about it, but there's so many people in the film that are tall children that they're really not mature, and I like one of the themes in this film that's brought forward, at least the idea that some things that are told to you that you experience or that you go through when you're younger will cause you to adopt unusual beliefs or habits later in life. Someone will say something to you and it will change your behavior. So like for me, during allergy season growing up, it used to be really bad for me. I used to get a really bad runny nose. I used to get all itchy. And then I remember someone telling me, like, just distract yourself. Think of something fun or pleasant. Yeah. And I used to daydream whenever I would experience allergies. So, but then the reverse happens now where when I daydream, my nose gets itchy. Yeah. I feel like I have to sneeze. And it's like this psychosymptomatic thing of someone told me to do something when I was younger, so now I do it.
Oh, sneezing, that's something we got to talk about for a Midnight Madness title.
Yes. But I just, with Chuck, there's something that he was told when he was younger that he adopts and continues when he's older. Yeah. That he keeps very close to himself, and it's one of the important threads of the movie.
And the thing is, like, it's a whole. By the time we get to this last act, it's like it also feels like a perfect recontextualization of everything that we saw prior. But yes. I'm not gonna say anything. I'm not gonna explain anything even further because, of course, this movie, I should mention, it has no distributor yet.
Yes.
As of the time of this recording, at the very least. So yeah.
And I would say that a lot of people. I feel like it's a hot take to say that they don't like the first act, or sorry, to say that they don't like. Act 3. They don't like Act 3. A lot of people said once they saw the whole movie, they don't like Act 3 anymore. But I disagree. I don't like Act 1.
You don't like Act 1 at all?
I think a problem with it is we're left in mystery so long, and I have so much faith in the film that once we get towards that ending where we're starting to explain everything, we're starting to get a better understanding of
Chuck's philosophy.
Of the life of Chuck and Chuck's philosophy. And I feel that the explanations are too good.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a bit of summarization of his life. Yeah. And I think that's self-evident in Act 2, where all of Act 2 is one memory from
memory that really just stands out,
It's basically a memory that stands out in his adulthood. Yeah. And I think that's unfair. Yeah. And I would say it's the reverse of profound to summarize your entire adulthood into one moment. I feel like to come to a conclusion like that, you have to ignore a lot of things.
And the thing is, like, that's exactly how it plays out in Stephen King's story. So even then, when I was reading it, I thought, is there a little bit more that he can show that made him live so spontaneously?
Yeah, but once again, this isn't fair of me to do because it's based on a short story. It's meant to be just like a parable of an instant where When you're told things when you're younger, you adopt certain behaviors when you're older, and it changes you.
And and at the very end, it's like I love how it's basically Stephen King just trying to write something based around that Walt Whitman story. And then in the Act 1, this is in the short story, by the way. Act 1 is simply called "I Contain Multitudes" because it's referencing that Walt Whitman poem.
Yes, and and it has to do with that poem.
Yeah.
But I like this movie a lot. I like it less as it goes on. But I think the effect of that is the fact that it has been pulled out into this movie experience.
Yeah.
I think if I read this as a book, I would go, there's something deep there.
Yeah.
I can walk away and just think about it. And I
Absolutely.
don't have to think about it compared to all the other amazing movies I've seen.
Absolutely. What's your score for this one?
This is a 4.
This is a 4? Yeah, this is this is like one of my favorites of the festival, so it's a 5, but at the same time, I can't even list it as my favorite film of the year or anything like that because it has no distributor yet, so yeah, at least at the time of this recording, so yeah.
This is an example of what we call bog bodies, mummified from the Iron Age.
You see, his penis has been severed and hung around his neck.
Sounds like a man to me.
So you brought up rumors earlier.
Yes.
Why don't you tell us a little bit more about the adult children thing?
This movie, its characters, its script, its story, it's all dumb.
It's all so silly, and yet you know what? That's why we are here for it.
That's why I love it. We had trouble with this trying to record before, but we are going to really not get too in depth with many of the jokes.
Yeah.
We're not going to talk too much about the story, although I'll say vaguely it's thin on that.
It's the G7. It's basically the closest thing we have to a story. It's like what the leaders of the G7 get lost in the woods and they are living a horror movie scenario.
Yeah, but it strides many genres. There's a lot of humor. There's a lot of romance.
Yeah.
There's so many moments where it's melodramatic and then flippant. There's so much whiplash in terms of genre.
I just want to say that I love that they cast the world leaders inappropriately, so to speak, because Cate Blanchett does not speak with a German accent at all.
No.
The American president is played by a British guy.
There's a great lampshading of that.
Yeah.
There's a great joke that they do to address that. It's fantastic.
And he's just an old man. He's also just played by an old man because, again, I guess they wanted to take a jab at Joe Biden while he's still in office right now.
Yeah, and you could apply some kind of political ideology to his portrayal. He's an old man that represents a decaying empire, but it's still the most powerful in the world. So he's like uninterested in so many of like the squabbles.
Yeah, he's just a guy who wants to do everything, I guess.
Yeah. The characters in the film itself, it sets itself up for political commentary. It also makes fun of the audience if they try to apply political commentary. There's many scenes where they poke fun at the audience if they're trying to apply any meaning to any of this.
Yeah, because they're all adult children, like you said, but at the same time, it's like the fact they're all adult children is what makes this movie so much fun.
Yeah, it's this movie is incredibly playful, and
I love its visuals too.
It's visually striking. I wouldn't say it's perfect visually. Can you explain your experience with the cinematography?
It's like sometimes. Then again, it's like okay. So I've also made fun of Cineplex for this in the past, but the projection at Cineplex can be a little bit black. But although you saw it at the light box, on the other hand,
I saw it at the light box. I have no complaints with
the projection,
with the projection or the audio or anything like that. So sometimes it appears like quite cinematically interesting. There's a lot of depth to some shots, and then sometimes it looks a bit flat. The scenes look a bit fake.
Yeah.
But that also adds to the funniness of some of the scenarios where they're treating it so seriously, but the scenery looks fake. So
it looks so fake, and I mean, even to the point where we see a little mysterious object somewhere in the woods, but it's on the poster. Should we say it anyway?
Let's keep it vague. There's a giant foreign object they find in the forest.
And it's a giant foreign object that brings a foreign woman along with who speaks a language that they can't even figure out. It's Swedish.
It's Swedish. I love that they go like, what language could this be? It must be an old, ancient language.
And it's just Swedish.
It's just Swedish, which is hysterical.
Yeah.
And I love that something like a giant foreign object is presented to the characters in the woods, does it have a significance to the story, to the characters,
Probably
the development?
not, but you know what? That's why we love seeing it here.
Does it represent something deeper? Is there something artistic we're not seeing beneath the surface?
Trying to think about what it could be, but it's like I feel like if I think too hard about that, then
It is a black hole of meaning, and I love it. It's so alluring. The whole movie is so striking and alluring, and makes weird decisions. So and it finds a way to keep your trust.
Yeah.
I trust you to crack a joke. I trust you to show me something interesting.
there is a lot of stuff in this movie. That's all I can say.
Yeah, like, and that's a problem with a movie like this. If we dig too far into the characters or even things that they encounter, it's spoilers. The spoilers is where's this going to go?
Yeah, spoiler though is like all I can say about the ending. Which I will not spoil. It is the most ridiculous thing that you could ever imagine.
It is a direct continuation of all the stupidity that we have seen throughout the film,
and it is like put. It's filmed in such a way where it's like, you know what, they want to make it look epic, they want to make it look grand, you know?
Yeah, they want to do something that demands an audience, and the audience that attends that great thing, it's so ridiculous, it's so dumb.
Yeah,
it's so dumb. I don't want to say much more about the movie other than if you have an opportunity to see it, go see it. It's so stupid.
Yeah, Guy Maddin is he's a madman, to put it lightly.
He's a madman who is threatening audiences with a good time.
Yeah. So what you go for this one, John?
This one gets a 4. Yeah, like a 4.
Okay, solid 4. Yeah, this was a 3 teetering on 3.5 for me, but at the same time, it's like it's one movie that I just feel like I want to recommend to anybody who has no idea what they're in for, because this is just you can't forget something like this the moment you come out.
I can't imagine anyone having a bad time with this movie other than they get too confused.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. This is a good time.
Yeah.
Me go myself, me myself, you go yourself and your mother.
That feeling that we became such a close friends and kind of brothers were allowing us to do whatever we want, like pushing, yelling, cursing. It was so natural. It was like we were kind of in all that situation all the time. You know?
Brothers would be.
When I first time met Mikey, and I thought, wow, I will play with that girl. Wow.
How's Ego's grandmother?
She's very good.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You are so fun. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you very much.
Do you want to talk about Anora next?
Yes, I do, because of course well, here's the thing: we've talked about the Palme d'Or winning movie on this show quite a while already, because like we've done an episode on Parasite, we've done one on Titan, another on Triangle of Sadness, and most recently Anatomy of a Fall. Mm-hmm. Now we continue that tradition with Anora.
Yes.
And so this is a movie starring Mikey Madison as Anora, a stripper who specializes in speaking with Russian customers, that meets this one guy named Vanya, who is the son of a Russian oligarch. And what happens after that is, because he doesn't want to leave America, he decides, you know what, we're going to elope so that I have a green card marriage. But then, of course, the fairy tale marriage that Anora gets herself a part of, it shatters right away, because that's when the family comes in.
Yeah, I'm surprised they reveal so much of that plot in the trailer, too.
Yeah.
But I don't think it really spoils the true heart of the movie.
Yeah, because the thing is, like, the whole movie is supposed to be about how Anora, because she's a sex worker, it's everything that she experiences in life. She's very used to it all being very transactional at best. Mm-hmm. And even when Vanya is presenting her with something that feels very, very true in the very end, it's like, was this really true love that he was giving her?
Yeah, like the transactional nature of love and romance in this movie is a major theme.
Yeah.
It's explored in depth.
Because that's just like that's exactly how sex workers have lived their lives. But the thing is with Sean Baker, I think we've talked about this in the past. Sean Baker, a lot of his films, he's always been focusing on the plight of many people who are looked down upon in American society. Because in one of his very early movies, there's Takeout, which is about a Chinese takeout delivery man who's delivering stuff from a Chinese restaurant. But it's like, of course, he's an illegal immigrant, so he's not even supposed to be in the country to begin with. But most of his films have always been about sex workers in some way, and like the lives that they live outside of their business.
Well, yeah, it's like the downtrodden of society, or people that don't receive the humanity they deserve.
Yeah, but Anora, on the other hand, like she's portrayed with such humanity. It's like the moment you see her on screen, it's like the moment when you see her like outside of what she does for everybody else, you actually want to hang out with her for a bit.
Yeah, and I'm shocked too that so Anora, our protagonist, she's given a lot of humanity, and she's a stripper, and they normally don't get that in movies. Usually they're background characters.
They're background characters who a lot of audiences just want to say, oh yeah, we want this in the background so we can stare at something else other than the main character.
Yeah, normally it's eye candy for viewers.
Yeah.
But it's interesting too how that humanity is extended and afforded to other characters as well.
Yeah.
So like there are some Russian, Armenian goons that are shown in the movie, but they're not just goons. They're elaborated on.
Like one of them has one of them is his name's Toros. We see him as a priest who's supposed to be giving a baptism, but he leaves the baptism
because of this situation between Vanya and Anora.
Yeah.
He has to leave in the middle of a baptism. There's a part where he checks his freaking phone.
Yeah.
He's like, he's holding a baby, and he's like, hold this, and he checks his phone.
Yeah.
And then he walks out in the middle of it. He's like, sorry.
Massive.
Sorry, everyone. I have to go.
Yeah. And then, but also his goon, his goon named Garnik is played by this guy, Vash, a very Armenian actor, by the way.
Yeah, like a famous Armenian comedian.
Yeah.
Like, does a lot of work.
Yeah. He gets injured at one point in the movie as a result of this business.
Yeah, and that's that humanity and mortality that everyone's afforded. It's like he's not some Saturday morning cartoon villain where he gets punched in the face and bounces back with an evil plan. Like, no, he gets like injured, and he's with that injury throughout the film.
Yeah, and it's just so funny because at that point it's like Garnick saying, "Oh yeah, you know what? I'm doing this because it's business. It's just business." And it's like, as the movie goes on, it's like, is there even any point to this?
Well, exactly. Everyone becomes so fatigued with the situation near the end.
But the thing is, like, I like that Sean Baker is like ramping up how much energy is coming on from not just from the moment the movie starts, but even as the drive to find Vanya so that they can force an annulment of this marriage. It's just
there's some tone shifts. I think there's like 3 key tone shifts where in the beginning it's mostly
a fairy tale life. Yeah.
Well, it's like neuron activation where it's I feel like a lot of guys in the theater are going to be enjoying what they see on the screen.
Yeah.
And then that switches more into a like action mystery pursuit. It becomes quite intense and inquisitive and combative.
Yep.
And then it starts to mellow out, and characters are forced to talk.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of the heart of the film is felt.
That's where a lot of the heart of the film is felt. And because the thing is, like, even though so much of it is really funny, by the end of it, it's like you feel very devastated.
Well, it's like a weekend in Vegas, you know?
Yeah.
It's really fun while you're there, but then there's the regret afterwards, and then there's you actually having to
grapple with everything.
Well, it's like you have to return to reality.
Yeah.
And you realize that's the kind of partying or the excitement that you experienced while you were away on vacation, or at least in that world, you now have to negotiate with the real world.
Alas, that's exactly what Anora has to deal with, and it's part of why I think Mikey Madison's work in this movie is just so powerful too.
Mm-hmm. She gives an excellent performance.
Yeah.
There's a big range of acting that she has to perform.
It's like in the moment when the film starts, like she's mostly very happy, especially when she spends time with Vanya. But then it's like as the movie goes on, she gets even sadder as she realizes she's being flashed back into reality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I would say that Like this is a near perfect movie, as in there's not many mistakes with it.
Yeah.
I do think it doesn't exactly achieve some heights, but that's because it's so committed to its story. Like you're familiar with
Sean Baker.
With Sean Baker's work.
Yeah.
And this is a refinement of an idea he's been working on over this past few films.
Especially because he's always been a very big advocate for getting sex work decriminalized, which I mean it's a very admirable thing on his record too. And the thing is, like, I like that he finds a way to stay so very close with the people who he's making his films about, to the point where it's like, you know what, they feel at the very end of the day they're just people, you know.
Yeah, and that's the main message this movie gets across. It's not just sex workers, but just all people that you might disregard or consider background people in a movie, that they're human beings.
Yeah, this is a 5 for me, so yeah.
This gets a good 4.5 from me.
4.5 from you? Yeah, nice. And you know what? I think that honestly, anybody who's listening to this right now, you're all gonna have a really, really good time with this movie.
Yeah, you're gonna have some fun, and you're gonna get your heart broken.
Yes, very much so. But at the very end of the day, I want to give Igor a hug.
I want to give Igor a hug, and his grandma.
He's like, his grandma's very good.
How's Igor's grandmother?
She's very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This documentary will record your progress from your arrival in Canada as a draft refugee through your career as a filmmaker.
Where's my wife?
I'm here, Leo.
I want to tell everything, for the record.
I know most of the stuff anyway.
You don't know any of it.
Okay, let's begin. Lights, please.
Leonard 5, December 22, 2023.
Our last movie today is John's first movie of the festival as a press member.
Yeah, this is the first one I saw.
This film is none other than Paul Schrader's O Canada.
Yeah, this one's interesting.
Yeah.
There's some things I really like that are going on here, some things that are kind of disappointing, but apparently these are familiar kind of shortcomings with this director.
Yeah, the thing is, like, Paul Schrader, he's always been a very interesting filmmaker, at least for the fact that he's very confrontational, as we see in his work with Martin Scorsese. Because the thing is, like, he wrote Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, Last Temptation of Christ, and Bringing Out the Dead. But then it's like we now know Paul Schrader as the director. On the other hand, that's a whole different beast entirely. This is a film about Leonard Fife, at least his life explored from his youth, where he was a leftist draft dodger who didn't want to take part in the Vietnam War by fleeing to Canada. As he got older, it's like he became more well known as a leftist documentary filmmaker. The one thing I like about this movie is just that Leonard Fife, he's a very mythological figure for most people who are talking about him. Like, yeah, oh yeah, for most people, it's like, this guy's a legend.
And then so seeing such a humble portrayal of him and seeing like the honest truth about who he is, I can understand it being quite traumatic or difficult for some people to understand.
Yeah, and I think that I like the way this movie is structured, because the thing is, like, we're seeing him try to recall his life, but it's like even he's inserting his old self into that younger self.
Yeah, so he's an old man that's agreed to an interview, and he's trying to recount his whole life, but he's not exactly answering the questions that are being asked him. He's giving the whole story and focusing more on the ugly bits.
Yeah.
But because he's a bit further on in life, in fact,
it's like his memory's already fading. Yeah.
His memory's fading, so it's difficult for him to tell things accurately, but he really wants to tell the story throughout the film.
Yeah.
There's some aggressive narration.
Yeah.
Which apparently that's common in Paul Schrader films.
It's very, very common in a lot of Paul Schrader movies.
I like it. It does wear out its welcome.
Yes. I do agree, because the thing is, I find that for better or worse, it ends up becoming the distortion of that memory ends up becoming one of the more confounding aspects of this movie too.
Because our narrator becomes confused, it also confuses the film.
Yeah.
So then we start to drag our feet a little bit. We go back over certain events, so some scenes repeat.
Yeah.
But that being said, the movie, or at least the story within this movie, is interesting.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
Acting in particular is fantastic. Here's the thing, like Jacob Elordi, I never really paid much attention to him as an actor up until I saw him in Priscilla, where he played Elvis Presley. Here, as the younger counterpart of Richard Gere, he's great. Yeah.
Yeah. So I originally saw Jacob Elordi in
In
the
Ki-
famous Netflix trilogy, The Kissing Booth.
Oh, good times,
which I
good times.
watched and enjoyed, ironically. And I remember him being in all of them, and I really enjoyed laughing at everyone in those movies, including Joey King. That's right, you're not escaping this either. Those movies are embarrassing. But
I still haven't even seen any of them.
But some people have indicated to me that this is not Jacob Elordi's first good role, that he was in Priscilla. He's also in Saltburn, which people say isn't a great movie. But
it's not a very good movie, but he's good.
But his performance is of note.
Yeah.
And so seeing him in this movie where he's adopting this younger version, I would say he's in direct competition with Richard Gere's performance.
Yeah,
he gives a really good performance.
Honestly, I think I was more taken in with him than I was with Richard Gere, because Richard Gere is basically like being this old man who is so confused.
He's a confused, sarcastic old man.
Yeah.
So Jacob Elordi is a lot more interesting to follow.
Yeah.
And some other performances going on here. Michael Imperioli.
He's supposed to be like apparently like a 19-year-old, which is something I've read, and I thought, nah, how do you pull that off? Come on.
Well, yes, I didn't know that, but watching his performance, I thought it was serviceable, and it made me think about what other movies is he in, because I only remember him from The Sopranos.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Christopher Moltisanti. Yeah. Uma Thurman, on the other hand, like, I don't know what to make of her role in this.
I don't like Uma Thurman in this. I think she's the weakest performance.
Yeah. I think that she just took me out for most of it, because honestly, all that she's really doing is like what? She's just being very protective of Leonard Fife through most of it.
Well, everyone's very straight-spoken or businesslike, and she's incredibly emotional, but too emotional.
Yeah.
Like she's really chewing the scenery in some of these, and it's jarring. I don't know why she wasn't told to tone it down.
Yeah. Also, because this movie is called Oh Canada, can we talk about the time when we actually hear Oh Canada in the...
Okay, so the score. It does play Oh Canada once, but it's like a specter, like a ghost on the wind that play. It's like a choir version of Oh Canada. It doesn't play the full thing. It only plays like maybe a little bit of it, like an ode, which that's disappointing. Also, this movie's filmed in New York.
So it's barely even Canada, and yet it involves the CBC too.
Like I was checking the credits. I'm like waiting for the telefilm grants, because they always do that.
Yeah.
And it not only did not receive funding, it wasn't filmed in Canada. It's filmed entirely in New York, and maybe I'm wrong, but that's disappointing, because I don't know if you know, I've made that drive from Canada to New York. The scenery's different. It looks different.
Yeah.
The part of like the country that he's in, it doesn't look like Canada. And I heard they set up like a fake border post. And it looks fake.
It's very, very...
but that was kind of disappointing.
Yeah.
I wish they had have actually committed to trying to film.
I think as part of me, it feels like there's a lot of interesting things going on in this movie when it comes to how the United States political scene relates to the Canadian political scene. But it's like, when you watch this right now, it feels like Paul Schrader probably might have been onto something if he made this 10 years ago, if I'm being honest. Okay, so Leonard Fife isn't even a real person. But but the whole idea that somebody like him would be, it's like you could see he's very much a composite of so many filmmakers who tried to draft dodge during the Vietnam War. Like but at the same time, I think that in how he tries to explore that ideology, it doesn't always work, you know. But
because it's trying to show like all the bad sides of this person.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I didn't find a lot of it too crazy. I've heard a lot of stories of this where it's people that are really bad to women, or that are womanizing, or like men abandoning their families, or dodging the draft. Like these are common stories. So like having it all put into one person, it's not. I didn't find it the most dramatic. I'm that's about on par.
The thing is, like, because it's so focused on Leonard Fife, it's like I want to know, did he even come across any other draft dodgers when he fled to Canada?
Yeah, like there's an interesting scene where he's in Montreal and they're like, you need work. You need to find work if you're here. And that kind of kicks him.
And that does not, he's set in Montreal.
Yeah.
Quote,
like really.
Quote unquote Montreal.
Yeah, it's Montreal because it's snowing. Yeah. So I like the way the movie's shot. No issues with sound. There's some like more figurative scenes, like the diner scene where the light spills in the door.
Yeah.
That happens a few times, and I don't find that interesting.
Yeah.
And it slows it down.
So I think for Paul Schrader is like a lot of when I was looking at this one in comparison to a lot of his films, like he wants to make a lot of films about the political ideologies that inform such decisions. And the thing is, it's like because we're focusing on an old man whose memory is fading, it's like how much of that conviction are we really even able to see besides the Jacob Elordi stuff?
Yeah, like how much can we really apply here?
And the thing is, don't get me wrong, I still like this movie a whole lot. I still like this movie quite a bit.
Yeah.
But it's just not doing enough if I'm being honest.
It's weird for the weakness of the film to be the framework for its storytelling.
Yeah.
Where this interview style, the losing the memory, and the unreliable narrator, that's the weakest part of the film.
Yeah. And yet it's what they're trying to carry it on, which is just...
But it's the style. That's the most stylized part of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that there's a lot of interesting stuff in here, but perhaps it needed another script touching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your score?
This is a 3.5 for me.
This is a 3.
3 for you? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a fine movie.
Fine.
A lot of people I know seem to have really hated this. I don't get where that's coming from, honestly.
No. This is not a bad movie.
Yeah.
This is perfectly
There's a
serviceable.
lot of good stuff in it,
Yeah.
but there's just not enough.
Yeah, like this isn't pushing the medium forward, and there's a lot of mistakes.
I think it's like even when you think about this in relation to what Paul Schrader was like at his peak, it feels like he's trying to chase it more than he is trying to get it back.
Yeah. And maybe you'll have a bit more success with the next one.
Yeah.
Look forward to it.
Yeah. Okay, so let's recall the movies once again. So of course we've got Oh Canada, 3.5 for me, 3 for John, and Life of Chuck, 5 for me, 4 for you.
Yeah.
Rumors, that was a 3 for me. 4.
And 4 for me, yeah.
Yeah. And then Anora.
That was a 4.5 for me.
And a 5 for me.
5 for you.
Yeah, all right. Tune in next time where we talk about All We Imagine As Light, The End, Heretic, and My Sunshine.
See you then.
See you then.
Bye.
Bye.